three main topics, and then there's a chance for questions at the end. Now, I understand some people might have some questions that they don't want to ask in front of everybody else, so please do feel free to stay behind and speak to either of us at the end. And we also have a range of information sheets and handouts that you can take with you if any of them spark your interest. So, first of all, one of the topics I want to cover is phones and phone use among the young people nationwide, but also at this school. So, this was a quiz that we did with staff in September on our first day, and I thought it would be interesting to share with you guys as well. So, if you were in class, I'd make you hold up your boards now so we can see what everybody input. I won't do that to you. So, anybody want to take a guess at how many 12-year-olds own a smartphone?
But 95%.
95. Actually, 89%. So there's not quite as many as we'd hope, as we think, but still quite a large number. This one was quite worrying as a parent of a 5 and a 6-year-old. I can't imagine this. 25% of children aged between 5 and 7 own a smartphone. The average age a child gets their first phone in the UK, any guesses? 7 to 8? 9, so pretty close, yeah, 9. Teenagers, the thought of this question, the thought of this answer just makes me feel sick myself, but teenagers get on average 200 notifications a day, and just the constant pinging must drive them mad. I know mine is about 20 probably, and that drives me mad enough. Now we get into the real concerning stuff that we unfortunately do deal with some students that we come into contact with. So 1 in 6 teenagers have shared a nude or sexual image of themselves online. The average age a child in the UK first sees pornography is just under 13 years old. I have heard quite a number of stories of them seeing it in primary school, actually in the playground or through phones of friends in primary school. 79% of young people, by the time they get to age between 18 and 21, report having seen pornography that involves sexual violence, and 35% of young people have seen suicide or self-harm online. The problem with the last question is that, as we all know, the way that the phones and the social media is set up is you're shown what it thinks you want to see. So the moment you put something into social media about feeling down, feeling depressed, self-harm, that is then all you see on your news feed, your For You page, whatever app you're on. And it feeds more into the feelings that you might have had just at one time. It's the same with any eating disorders, it's the same, like saying here, self-harm, suicidal ideation, or any of the other mental health concerns or anxieties that we might see in young people or older people as well. But once you've searched up once, self-harm, that is then filling up your page and just reiterated to you when you're in a vulnerable place. So, as I said, we're going to cover 3 main topics. Smartphones, I'll talk about that for a little bit. Safeguarding and how it works here at Cox Green, and then bullying, and then the time for questions at the end. Yes, I just came across this on my own Facebook page, ironically, and I thought it kind of demonstrated some of the work we've been doing with staff in school about
West.com.
Hey kiddo, it's about time for bed, okay?
Okay.
Oh, remember, there's a box in the corner over there with all the pornographic material that's ever been made in the world, even the really weird stuff that could scar you for life. I'm trusting you not to look in there, okay?
Okay.
Feelings are for losers.
Oh, and this guy's gonna be in your corner all night, just randomly spewing out hateful things. Just ignore him, okay? While I'm thinking of it, there's an order form on your desk where you can purchase illegal drugs. The mean girls from your school are gonna be standing there talking about you all night. And this Russian hacker's gonna keep asking for your password.
I'm not a hacker. Amazon customer service.
Just need you to ignore him, okay? Love you, buddy.
We ask too much of our kids when we give them a smartphone. Let's change the norm. Together.
Maybe we go around the room and share social security numbers.
Join the movement at smartphonefreechildhoodus.com.
I'll get it anyway.
Okay, so when I saw that, I thought that it kind of made the point that we had been working on with staff in this training that we did in September. So these graphs, which are from a book, which I'll talk about later. I've become that really annoying person that read a book in the summer and won't stop going on about it, but I'll explain why. So you can see here, this is the number of young people. So the rate per 10,000 people and different ages. You can see the higher up, the bottom one is 10 to 12, the red one is 13 to 16, and then the middle one 17 to 19-year-olds. But on each line you can see the rise in instances, reported instances of self-harm that starts around 2010, between 2010 and 2012. So whereas we feel as a school, and I know this is agreed with Natalie, that anxiety and self-harm increased greatly through COVID and the difficult time that everyone went through at that time, there's actually evidence that it started long before that, even 10 years before that, and this stark increase you can see around 2010. In boys, the numbers are a lot lower. We tend to see mental health issues maybe come out in different ways in boys, but you can see the gradual inclination rising up. Reported anxiety, again, around exactly the same time, this stark increase, even in children as young as 6 to 9. And then again, an increase in boys. While the numbers are slightly lower, those gradients go massively up between 2010 and 2012. And all of this could be linked to the changes that took place with our phones, with our social media around 2010. So you can see, before then, I remember sort of around 2007, got my first Facebook account, and it was just for putting on photos and kind of keeping in touch with people that lived far away. Then you can see in 2009, the like button was introduced, which changed the whole notion of why people would put things on there, subconsciously seeking that approval and getting value from what you're putting on social media. It also started in 2009 to bring in those things I was talking about, the algorithms, which feed you what it thinks you want to see. So the example I gave was, if I'm looking at kind of, people doing sort of try-ons of clothes, Primark try-ons for autumn clothes, then all I get on my Facebook for the next few days is like, buy this jumper, look at this, look at that. And it's the same for young people. That all started with the algorithms in 2009. Push to start those notifications coming through to our phones. This one I think is really interesting when we think about body image and self-worth. 2010 was when we got the first front-facing cameras, so we could start taking selfies. So that changed completely the type of images that were being uploaded. And also we all started to get high-speed internet coming into our houses and the development of Wi-Fi and things, so we were all able to be online rather than having to plug into the phone line like we used to do. And then also, it sums up kind of this idea that social media platforms have become these public performances, stretching much more widely than they had ever done before. This quote, which again came from the work we did with staff at the beginning, talks about how we are very overprotective as parents. In the real world, we're more scared than ever about them using certain equipment in the playground. There's a comparison picture that we showed of the old-fashioned playgrounds where you look at them now and you think, oh my god, how did any child survive going on that slide, which looks like it's about to fall down at any moment, to now where, even roundabouts are kind of pretty much on the way out because they're seen as not safe. But then actually what we're doing is we're overprotecting the children in the real world, not letting them take those risks, but we're underprotecting them online. And this young person from America spoke about, in an essay she wrote online, was that the first time she accessed porn, she was at home, she'd been shown it, she stumbled across it by accident, returned to it out of curiosity, and then was able to see things in the next door room to her parents without them even realising. And I think part of this problem is that the young people are more expert in this than we are, and so it's up to us to kind of try and educate ourselves to keep up with what they're doing. One of the things that I did want to speak about is that in school we have a number of systems that have been put in place to put that safety and those guardrails in place in school. So we have filtering systems where if anyone tries to access a website that's not appropriate, they're not able to, so it's blocked. But also, when it gets blocked, an alert is sent to the safety manager for that year group and to myself so that we know what type of things students have been trying to access. The reason for that is, unfortunately, a number of years ago in another school, in another part of the country, a young person had been trying to use school devices to research how to take their own life. And no one at the school was aware of that, and unfortunately it did happen, and so then a number of new rules and systems were required to be put in place by schools so that would never happen again. Our system is very good and very strong, sometimes to the point of being frustrating when lots of things are blocked, but staff can kind of keep us informed of what they need to be unlocked. For example, in media, if they're researching and working on Fortnite, we change the restrictions for that half term just so that they can actually access the information about Fortnite that they need to see. We also have monitoring, so anything that the students write into an email or a web page or a Word document is monitored, and key words and phrases are flagged up on the system. A couple of years ago, an email had been sent over the weekend, and I received an alert and a call from the IT manager saying this email's gone. A child had actually sent an email to themselves, and it was looked like a long poem of how down they were feeling and how they were in despair, they didn't know what to do. So we called the parents in the weekend because we were worried that this child was maybe reaching out or putting something down in words that they were feeling at the time. It actually turned out that they had copied and pasted some lyrics from a song that they wanted to use for a media assignment, but actually we thought, we were glad we did what we did, because you never know. But that showed the kind of the monitoring that the online work on the school systems undergoes. Anyone who, if the children, when they get to sixth form, they can bring in their own devices and go onto the school Wi-Fi, all those filtering and monitoring systems then apply while they're on that Wi-Fi network as well. So all of that is in place, and normally what will happen is when we get the logs, we will then decide, we will normally have a conversation with the child. I'd say 99 times out of 100, if not 999 times out of 1,000, there's an innocent reason why they've been looking for something. So they will be looking for weapons, but it'll be they're trying to get a picture to go on a PowerPoint they're making about something to do with their work, or health and social care. They will look up things like drugs and things like that. If we have a conversation and there's anything we need to inform parents of, we will obviously contact home, but that is actually very rare that we've had to do that. So all of this stuff about phones kind of links to two things. So this book is absolutely fantastic. There are podcasts available with this guy speaking on them as well, which is how I kind of got into it in the first place. But he generally talks about the concerns around phones and the fact that they are impacting on the resilience of the young people, their ability to learn, not just because they can get any answer they want on their phone, but also just the impact it has on the way their brains are developing, and the actual evolution of their brains is stopping the natural curiosity, their mental health and their self-esteem, their understanding of risk, the choice and experience of role models. So rather than finding role models in the society around them, they're finding them in people online who might not be the role models that you necessarily want, and also their safety. So all of this feeds into a campaign that was the American version of that advert called Smartphone Free Childhood. So we've signed up to this. 57 schools in the local authority have signed up to it. And the aim is to try and stop children having access to smartphones until year 9. Now, this is obviously a parental decision, and I understand there are so many factors involved in this. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, okay, you can't have a phone. But there are also, I think they call them brick phones or dumb phones, which they're trying to promote maybe. Like, I understand when my child goes to secondary school, I don't want him walking to school without a phone, or getting the bus or the train like some of our students have to do. But there are other ways they can do it that aren't necessarily smartphones. Or they could use a smartphone with a lot of restrictions and things like that on to try and minimise the impact of these things. Probably aware as well, we have a policy in school where students can have their phones with them.
Sorry, can I just quickly ask? So obviously, I get the whole thing about phones not being taken to school because is it not practical for the children to have their phones put somewhere if they're not allowed to touch them from the moment they get
Yeah.
into school to the moment they leave, is it impractical to have that? Because with the best will in the world, you can't police this whole school, and,
Yeah.
and they're all on them at break time.
Yeah.
But is it not practical for those phones to be put somewhere when they come into school and then got back when they leave school?
So with at break time, so if they're out and about, they can't be on them. But I understand they go to the toilet. I'm not stupid. I know they're probably going on them in the cubicles. But we are looking into. You've probably heard in other schools they have these pouches, and the pouches are locked at the start and end of the day, and that keeps the phone in the pouch and they can't use it during the day. It also blocks the signal to the phone. With collecting them in, it's because there's over 1,000 students in the school. It would be where we would be able to store them safely to make sure that nothing happened to them during the day, making sure the right person got the right phone back. It's all that stuff is quite time consuming.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't want someone to kind of hand their phone in the morning and it comes back to them broken or whatever. Then it's a huge issue. The pouches are being used at FIRSTPLAT and Altwood are introducing them, and we're looking into them ourselves. It's just a matter of kind of how we can practically do that. With the pouch, it's locked by a special magnet, which then that's the only way you can get back into your phone. So as long as they're all the time they're in school, they won't have access to the magnet. So it basically does that, but they get to keep it with them and have that it's safe.
So does that mean the magnet gets released when they leave school?
So what happens is they have to tap it onto a magnet at the end of the day, which
Right.
is by the gate, or their teacher at the end of the day would open them or something. We need to look at the practicalities, but that's the kind of the way a lot of schools are going, and it's something that we are looking into because we do want them also to have them, like I said, for going to and from school, but to have no temptation during the day. And the problem is a lot of them, it's almost an addiction. You know, if they're in the bag, they can't help it. I mean, a lot of us are like it as well, aren't we? Like if you hear it go, you can't sometimes help yourself from checking it. So that's the phone stuff. I just wanted to go through that because it is so important and so evident the effect that it's having, and we feel that we are a long way down the rabbit hole, but there is still things we can do as a school and as a society really to help them prevent it getting to any further. So safeguarding at Cox Green. So in our policy, in the government document on safeguarding, it's defined as all these things that we can do to support children. It's basically anything to keep them safe, prevent them from coming to harm, or help them if they have come to harm. And also, I think that the last point is really important because hopefully in your experience in school, whether that's been for a month or 3 or 4 years, is that we're not just about outcomes and exam results, but if a child doesn't feel safe and happy, they can't achieve in the classroom as well, which means their future is impacted. So all of these things all link in to each other. The systems that we have in the school kind of start with Sharon and I. So my role, like I said, is the policies, the processes, and supporting the safety in the day-to-day work that they do. I'm called the designated safeguarding lead, which is a legal role that someone in the school leadership team holds. So that ultimately the buck stops with me when it comes to safeguarding. And then Sharon's role is leading a team of 5 other safe managers who I'll talk about in a minute, working herself with the sixth form, but also, we work together a lot when things happen to kind of decide the best way forward. The safe team, each year group has a safe manager dedicated to them. It's a non-teaching member of staff, and they work alongside the head of year and the SLT to support all the students in the year group. If anything happens with the student, either outside of school, through home, friendship issues, mental health issues, anxiety, bereavement, then support in the school starts with the safe manager or builds up from the safe manager, and they also are the main point of contact with the external support and wide range of agencies that we work with, which I'll come back to in a minute. Some of them are listed up there. So early help, which is through the local authority, where it might be that the child needs a youth worker or maybe a family support worker. Daisy's Dream is a charity that's used for students who had a bereavement, and they will come in and work with that student on kind of remembering their the relative that they've lost and kind of different ways to cope with that. The Mental Health Support Team, which is a branch of CAMS, who do work with students in the school. Number 22, counselling, a local group that we can refer students to, and also a number of other people. So you can see on there, each year group has a safe manager, and they move with them through the school. Anything else to add? No. Then they have their heads of year, which is the top row, Mr. Burrows for the sixth form, and then as SLT, we kind of oversee a couple of year groups each, and I work with year 11. So there's lots of people working around the children to try and keep them safe. There's also ELSA, which is Emotional Literacy Support Assistant, which Ms. Spiro generally works with year 7s and 8s. That's around building positive friendships or dealing with anxiety. Attendance is a massive part of safeguarding. If a child isn't coming into school, we're starting to worry about their safety because we're not seeing them. We do regular safety checks with them if they're absent for more than 5 days. But also, being in school is such a protective factor of making sure that a young person is safe and well and happy and succeeding. We have our behaviour team as well, led by Ms Middleton, and then obviously our SEND department. So all of those people kind of work together in various ways when in whatever situation is thrown up. Every member of staff in school logs any concern they have, even if it's the most tiny thing, a comment that's made, or they notice maybe a bruise or something on a child's clothing. They log it on CPOMs. And what we do is we use that to create an overall picture. So you can imagine if one person logs that a child seems really tired for the last couple of lessons, then we think, oh, that's unusual. If 5 or 6 teachers across the week log that a child seemed tired, they said they were hungry, they fell asleep in one lesson, they didn't have any of their equipment, we start to build a picture that something is going on at home or something is making this child be completely different to normal. So CPOMS is vital, and that's where we keep all of our records and all of our kind of different things that happen are all logged on there. Some of these things I just wanted to talk a little bit about. So we do work with things like PREVENT, which is the government strategy to prevent terrorism. So we might feel that if somebody asked a question about racism and dealing with racist comments. Now, if we became very concerned that there was a pattern of behaviour where a child was saying extremist views or behaving in a way that showed they had maybe come under the influence of something online or something, starting to have really extreme beliefs, we would refer them to PREVENT, who would decide whether they would do some work with them. Same with the police, we sometimes have to report things to the police. 2 things on there are great achievements that we've had in the last couple of years. So we won an award for our work with young carers. So if there's obvious situations where a child might be looking after a parent who's unwell or disabled, but also if they've got other siblings who need more care or they have to sometimes look after because either of the parent situation or the sibling having additional needs or physical disabilities of their own. Those children, the SAFE team do a huge amount of work with them, providing them with support and opportunities to help them through difficult situations. And we've achieved an award for our work with young carers. And last year we got a bronze award for our work on attachments. So working with children who've experienced trauma and how we support them in school. Okay, so that's kind of our main stuff on what we do in school. Bullying is the last main topic that I wanted to cover. So there are 3 words missing from this definition of bullying. Just give everybody 1 minute to see if you can think what they might be, and then we'll go through that. If you want to write them on your board, feel free to write them on your board. You don't have to. So just 1 minute to think what you think those missing words might be. Okay, so this is the definition of bullying from, there's a group called the Diana Award, which is set up in memory of Princess Diana, and it does work against bullying across the country with a number of different schools and young people and organisations. So this is their definition of bullying behaviour. So the first word that begins with R, any guesses? Repetitive, exactly. Repetitive negative behaviour that is intended to make others feel upset, uncomfortable, or unsafe. Exactly. So one of the things we work with the children on is understanding what bullying actually is, and the repetitive and the intended nature of it is really important. So sometimes, and I'm not wanting to minimise this, but people have a big argument with friends, a big falling out. They can say, they're bullying me. If that's a one-off, it's a falling out, they might make up, they might not, but it's not bullying. It's an issue that we would deal with, and we would work with them to restore that friendship or get them at least to common ground and civil with each other. But it's when it's that repeated behaviour which is targeted and intended to cause pain, discomfort, physical upset, whatever it is. Also, it often is about power imbalance. So 2 or 3 people on one, or older students and younger students. Those kind of things are what we're looking at. I always say I'd love to stand here and say there's no bullying in Cox Green, but I'm not stupid. I know that unfortunately, I don't think there's any school in the country or the world that can say that honestly, because human nature is, unfortunately, these things do happen. But one of the things I want to go through is just kind of what we do about it when it does happen. So this is just another definition of it. So it's repetition, intent, targeting, and a power imbalance. So one of the things they talk about the Diana Award is how important it is to nip bullying in the bud, to stop it, because the impact it can have on a young person, it's kind of like when you scrunch up a piece of paper, you can flatten it out and try and make it all right again, but it's never going to quite be the same again. And long-term, repetitive, debilitating bullying can cause that kind of long-term impact for a young person. So we really try everything we can do to, if we become aware of anything, to stop it and to deal with it as quickly as possible. So we have our in-school anti-bullying support. So these are some of my anti-bullying ambassadors. And we've set this group up who they provide support in a number of ways. So if a young person has had any issues or incidents, it doesn't have to be bullying, it can be, last year, somebody who was struggling to make friendships, work and finding that difficult, we can provide them with some one-to-one support or two-to-one support from the anti-bullying ambassadors. They meet with them a few times, once or twice a week normally, for a period of time. If there's been an incident where there has been bullying towards one person, when I spoke to these guys and said, what support do you think the children would want? They said they want someone to talk to if it starts happening again, but they're scared or worried about telling a teacher because last time they did that and it hasn't fixed it. So we put this in place that they would have a contact with another student and they would speak to them and say, has anything else started happening? Is there anything that's worrying you since it's all been sorted, since the sanctions have been put in place? And it would be an opportunity for them to say, well, actually, they did make a comment the other day, or they did send me a few messages last night. And the anti-bullying ambassadors would be able to support them to go to a member of staff or pass that on themselves. So they have a number of ways they report to us, and they do a written log of each of the conversations that they have, just to make sure that if anything worrying is reported, that it's dealt with. They also help me with things like assemblies and where we have open evening and where we have the anti-bullying week and events coming up. So they're a great group that we've set up, and I hope to see them we're going to keep recruiting from different year groups to replace them, because some of them have got into year 11 now, but they are doing really, really well and want to have a powerful and positive effect in school. If you have a look at online, we do have our safeguarding policy and our anti-bullying policy, but just to sum it up, we do a lot to try and educate the children around bullying, like I said, what it is and how to spot it and the impact it can have. We have our personal development curriculum, which students have lessons once every fortnight on a range of topics. We cover this in that, as well as Wednesday mornings and Tuesday time, assemblies, different events, different kind of days in a couple of weeks after half term. We have anti-bullying week. We have a whole day where we have different people come in, like counsellors and people from the mental health support team, to work with children on the impact of bullying. We have a range of ways that we try to celebrate diversity so that we don't have students being picked on for being different. So things like through PD, our Unity group, celebrating the diversity of our school, Community, which is a group for anyone who wants to kind of support, celebrate LGBTQ+ people, and through our assemblies and everything else that we do. We talked about the pastoral support, quick and clear action where things are reported, and everyday things that we do, like having seating plans. So if students are having difficulties with another person in the class, we will just ask the teacher to subtly move a few people around and make sure they're far away from each other, or where the teacher can easily hear if any comments are being made. We have our hub where people can go if they feel like they can't manage it to make it into a lesson. The supervision that's around every day at break and lunchtime. from staff, and then that early intervention with people as well. We look at all these things, so all of our responsibility, including children, you know, sometimes we can say, if they haven't, I understand it's really difficult for them to say things when they're upset, to tell people, but we have a number of ways they can communicate with us if things are happening, and until we know, we can't do anything. So we need them to report. We have an email address which they can send to if they can't face going to speak to someone, see their be heard at coxgreen.com, and other ways that they can kind of talk to us, and they hopefully feel there's a number of different people in school they can talk to with all that pastoral support. So if something is reported, I'll sum this up because it's very long and wordy, sorry. If something is reported, we have a thorough investigation into it. So we will gather statements from the people and the children involved, any adults who would have witnessed it or been involved, witnesses, other children normally, and we also, thank goodness for CCTV, we have a huge number of cameras around the school, so if there are reports of, you know, somebody tried to trip me up, somebody pushed me, that kind of thing, we can get the CCTV and prove that that's happened. It's really important as well that the children, if they are receiving online horrible comments and things, that they get evidence of that. Now, I understand that on Snapchat, I think it is that if you take a screenshot, it tells the person who sent the comment or the picture that you've taken a screenshot, so they don't want to do that because kind of can get them into more difficulties with the person. But what you can do is if they've got something on their phone that's worrying them, you can take a picture of it on your phone, so you can kind of hold your phone over their phone, and then no one will know that that's been recorded, and then that can come into school if they don't want to take a screenshot because they're worried about that. But those things are really important to us. Screenshots, screen recordings, videos of what's been going on the phones, because then we've got, you know, absolute cut and dry evidence of what's happened. If there's been something happen that day, we will separate the students so that nothing else can happen. Usually that would involve them kind of being with either in the hub or in our reflection room, or making sure they don't have lessons near each other, or if there's any more break times, so they have separate areas to go to. We can take the students' phones if we're worried that they're going to use them to stir up difficulties, or while we're investigating. We don't look at their phones unless they're there, obviously. We ask them to show us things on their phones if we want to see them, if we need to see evidence of things, or we think there might be something on there. We might say, can we see your camera roll? And they just show it to us with them there. Two of us together would always do that. We'd never do that on our own. We make sure that we use timely and appropriate sanctions for the behaviours that have gone on, and explain to them afterwards how those will escalate. So if a child has been, for example, put into internal reflection for making bullying comments towards another child, we will have a meeting after that with them and their parents and explain that next time it will be a suspension, because that's the escalation of that behaviour. Support, and it's not just for the people who are being bullied, but support for the bullies as well, to try and stop them from doing it again, to understand why they're doing it and make sure they don't do it again. And then the restorative meetings, which the safety team normally lead those, and they're absolutely brilliant at it, trying to get the students to a point where they can be around each other without things starting, and they can feel safe being alongside the other person in school. We would say you don't have to be best friends, but you do have to kind of coexist in this environment. So that's what we do if any bullying is reported. I've rushed through that, so sorry about that, but I just wanted to cover the main things. And then just see if there are any questions. If you want to ask any questions now in front of everyone, you're welcome to, or if you want to stay behind at the end, there'll be opportunities to ask individual questions. But I just wanted to go through some key things. If there's anything I haven't covered that you want me to cover, please let me know, and I'm happy to speak about it now. Is there anything you want to say, Sharon, that I haven't said?
No, I think the only thing I would add is, I know you talked about things being logged onto CPOMs, and people pick that up. What actually happens is when somebody logs something on CPOMs, it automatically alerts the safe manager for that year group. So that's who will pick up those things. If a safe manager is off or absent for any time, then it automatically diverts to me, so I will end up picking up. So they don't miss anything, and we don't miss anything on a daily basis. So yeah, just to kind of reiterate that. And then there are some bits and pieces up there if people are interested. There's some dates on webinars held by the police. There's things on some of the understanding of the words for cyberbullying. It's got a whole list of some of the words that are used. So just a few bits and pieces if you're interested, and you can take them away.
Yes. So we did talk about the online bullying and stuff, but what happened, if the children they bully each other inside the school, in the classroom, or on in the playground? What is the level of monitoring, especially during break times?
So at break time, we have staff members on duty across different areas of the school. So there will normally be, I'd say, around 12 members of staff on duty across the canteen, the basketball courts, the Astro, and then the main quad area. And they always wear high-vis jackets. So if a child feels that they're at risk, or they need help, or they want to report something, even if it's a member of staff they're not familiar with, because we have about 90 members of staff in the school when you include support staff as well, so it might be someone they've never seen before, but they know the person with the high-vis jacket is the person to go to. And that's kind of what we would encourage them to do. Like I said, we also have the CCTV, so if they do report something, we can straight away unpick exactly what's happened. And in class, I would hope that the teacher would be able to pick up on comments being made. If not, then the child can stay behind at the end or speak to the teacher, or take a moment outside and speak to the teacher then. And then it would be reported to the safe team, who would come and check in with that child and make sure that they're okay, and try to find out exactly what's happened after that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just in relation to your school policy around phone usage.
Yeah.
You said the sixth formers are allowed to attach your associate with Wi-Fi
Yeah.
to the network. Do you have anything in place that sort of bounces off anyone else trying to bring your Wi-Fi? So if I'm a year 8 student and I'm trying to bring your Wi-Fi to my private device,
Yeah.
is there anything in place that rejects that?
So the sixth formers it's linked to their specific login, so they would be given the permission to log in, and the younger students wouldn't be able to log in to that on their Wi-Fi. So when they go on, I think they have to put their school login username and password on, and that's how they're given permission, and then the system will know what year group they're in via that.
So individually assigned, it's like a unique password to that individual.
Everyone has their own login and password, yeah.
There's no random password that just go around and use in the general area.
They don't know, they don't use, so we have a guest Wi-Fi, but when the guests come, we give them that on a piece of paper, and that changes regularly, and the older students who can use the Wi-Fi, they log in using their school, same thing they used to log on to their documents on the computers and things like that.
So is it not physically possible for anyone other than the people who have the code for being a guest? Is it not physically possible to get onto Wi-Fi while you're in the school grounds?
As far as I know, yeah. I haven't gone onto it myself because it's never come up on my phone.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go onto it because I don't really use one very much in school. But the school Wi-Fi through the guest one has to have that specific password to them. Yeah.
And it's flagged up for the IT team. So if somebody logs on, it flags up for the IT team so they know
Oh, right,
who
okay.
actually has been logging on to their system.
Yeah.
So if anyone was trying to log on that wasn't in,
You'll be alerted.
right.
So it's a managed network rather than just...
Yeah, it's not an open public.
No, the key bit there was, for me, was the fact that you give out unique passwords
Yeah.
and that it's managed. Because if that password gets breached and anyone...
If somebody tries to, yeah.
As you mentioned, they're quicker than we are.
Yeah.
They'll know that password within the end of the day, and then all of a sudden they just go... and
Yeah,
they'll
Yeah,
answer it.
yeah.
We have had previously where we have had what we think is somebody else using a student's password,
Yeah.
and the IT team flagged it up to us very, very quickly. They shut down that password completely, got rid of that password, and the student got a new password.
And I would
So
say,
they're quite good.
one
So
thing I would say is,
you've got keyloggers in place then.
Sorry?
Have you got keyloggers in place, yeah, to see what those students, I'm guessing?
so if somebody types something onto the computer, yeah, that's tracked, and then we get screenshots as well of what they've been looking at or typing on. So say, for example, someone types in one of the words that's flagged up to us. We know what device that was done on, where, and then we've got screenshots of what they were looking at. I would say as well, with your children, one of the things we had last year, which we had to speak to them about, is they for some reason, share their username and passwords with each other a lot. So some of them will have Edulink logins on their Edulink for 5 or 6, 7, 8 different people. They say it so they can check each other's timetables and they can look and see, and their friend can say, oh, what have I got now, if they've forgotten their phone. But it's quite concerning because once somebody has your login, if they do something on that account, it looks like you've done it. So we have had in the past where somebody's used somebody else's login, which they've been given freely, to send rude messages to staff and things like that. And obviously that's very then incriminating for the person whose login it is, and they then have to argue with us, oh, that wasn't through my Edulink, but they were last year sharing their Edulinks quite freely with each other. So if you can just speak to your child and say, the password and the login is for you only, and you should only have yourself on your Edulink, but if you look on if you go on their phone and see their Edulink, they could have the option of 5 or 6 different people's logins on there, and that's not, that has caused us issues in the past.
I'm guessing that's quite easy to resolve for the school in relation to that.
It's flagged up quite quickly, so I don't think they see when students have 5 or 6, but as soon as messages come through with some kind of word that is a flag word or a website, then it's flagged very, very quickly, and that's when we pick it up. So, we wouldn't necessarily know that 4 students have got 5 other students on their Edulink unless something is
Because they're doing that from phones.
that's flagged it.
Yeah. And if they've got somebody else's Edulink password, they can obviously log onto it at their own house on their Wi-Fi or on their data. So then our limits and our controls over that is limited. That's when the difficulty happens. Somebody had someone's Edulink password, they're in their own home on their own Wi-Fi and sending through messages. So it was difficult to track who had done it because it came obviously through an account, but we couldn't track the IP address as much as we did try and ask Sky, but they wouldn't do it.
I'm guessing you've got a mechanism to just then terminate that account's password
And reset it, yeah. Once we're aware that that's being used by somebody else, yeah.
Capture that.
And then it's reset and the new one's given to the owner of the account, yeah.
How frequently is this sort of stuff covered with the pupils?
What, online safety?
Yeah, just safeguarding, just like
Yeah.
obviously in a slightly different format to the parents.
Yeah.
But I mean, how is it something that started from year 7 and
Yeah.
like, yeah. And
So from year 7, so every week, Wednesday, tutor time, or on a Thursday or Tuesday, if they have assembly on a Wednesday, they have a session around something like this. So it might be online safety, bullying, healthy relationships, anything, any topic you can imagine that comes under the kind of personal development, PSHE, relationships and sex education topics. Then every fortnight they have a 1-hour lesson with their tutor where they'll cover a curriculum. We call it a spiral curriculum, so they would, every year they would do relationships and sex education, but it would start at a year 7 level and it would kind of raise up and they'd cover that topic at an age appropriate way every academic year. Online safety, they also cover in their IT and computer science curriculum, and we have assemblies on all of these topics as well. So and some of it obviously comes into different subjects as well, so they cover like relationships and sex education in science sometimes as well from the biological point of view, and they cover things like extremism, extremist ideologies in history through some of the things they look at. So we also have an understanding of where things are covered across our whole curriculum as well. But that allotted time is half an hour a week in the morning and 1 hour every fortnight additional to
so it's
that.
pretty regular.
We also
Pretty
have,
regularly, yeah.
we also have a number of external agencies that come in and they'll run assemblies. So we have organisations like COOF who do a lot of work with a lot of anxiety. They'll work with students for anything online as well. We have mental health support team who come in and run workshops for students and for parents. So it's an ongoing thing. And the anti-bullying day, we've got, I think, five or six different external agencies coming in for the day, and they work on a kind of a rotation through all the year groups and working with all the children on different things. So we might have mental health support team might come in and do how anxiety affects you through bullying, or falling out with friendships and how that affects you through the anxiety. who's come in and talk about what happens when you put things online and the impact, long-term impact of that. We have the youth workers come in from the borough and they'll talk about the legal aspects of things and what you are and aren't allowed to do and the support that's available outside. And then sometimes when the police come in, when they're available, they'll come in and they'll step up the legal aspects and talk about that. So, and that happens on a yearly basis now, so we have more coming in. In fact, we were the first school in the borough to start it, weren't we? And we were very lucky that we kind of reached out and they all said they would come and do the day every year. So it works quite well, and it gets every year group. I think it's only year 11, it maybe doesn't get because they're going into mock exams at that time. But yeah, every other year group has input from some of these people.
Yeah. There was a really good programme on last night actually at 10:30 on BBC One about a young boy that committed suicide. And it started out with somebody making out they were a young girl asking him for pictures and yeah, it's heartbreaking.
That's one of the things we're doing with the personal development curriculum. You're constantly having to update it because I went to a Thames Valley Police conference last year that talks about exactly that, like sexploitation, they call it, where they sort of pretend to be somebody online. I've got these pictures of you, you need to give me this money, or I'm going to send it to your family. Deep fakes as well, where images that children put online can be manipulated to make it look like something else and then shared around, all kinds of things like that. And unfortunately, we do come across those things as much as we wish that we didn't. So we kind of try to update the education we're giving them. The online safety that we were doing 5 years ago doesn't quite cut it anymore. There's new risks, new things out there, and we want them to be aware of the up-to-date things. And also they know all this. They know what's out there. It's just making them be able to understand the risks and what they need to avoid and how to be safe around it. So like I said at the start, they are more knowledgeable than we are on a lot of this stuff. So it's about us kind of educating ourselves, but also showing them, you might think that this is funny, putting these images on here, but actually look, this can happen. This is where it can go. And also, if somebody does try to exploit you for money, saying this, you must speak to an adult. Don't be afraid. Speak to an adult because most of the time it's not true anyway. And even if it is, the police and people. One of these things is about something called report remove. So if a young person is aware of an image that's sort of out there of themselves, of a friend, of something they're involved, there's a special website that they can use to report that, and then it will be removed from whatever sites or
We
whatever.
have those up around the school, so we have to make sure that not everybody would feel comfortable coming to us and saying, Miss, I've put an image out there of myself. But actually, if we've got these up there, they can scan this code and go through themselves and get it removed. So it's just to give them that opportunity, really. If they're not going to speak to anybody, and we would rather they did, because we can help them. But actually, if they're not going to, we have got things around for them that they can actually look at and do themselves. So it's trying to make sure that we're covered in every area. But it's the education as well, and it's a really difficult one because we can speak to students day in and day out about putting images of themselves online, about how they can be adapted by other people, what those images are, who they send those images to, and somebody can look you straight in the face and say, I would never ever do that, and a week later they're sitting in front of you saying this, I done this. And they're so easily influenced, and it's not their fault a lot of the time. They're so easily influenced. They're so young, and they think that they've met the person that they're going to spend the rest of their lives with. He's going to send one to me, so I've sent one to him. It's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. But we need to be able to support them to understand that actually, this has been done. It's really hard to take it back off of some sites, and we've had students where it's come up again a year later, and the impact of that. And that's what we have to educate them with. Actually, while we might be able to take it down, if it's already out there and people have seen it and other people have screenshotted it, a year later it could come back up again. And actually you've got the whole thing again of the anxiety that's causing, the impact on their well-being, and it's just huge. So education is the only way really that we can keep moving forward, and we have to make sure that we are as educated ourselves as possible. We will never be as educated as they are because they learn and they know so much more than us, but we have to try to do our best to make sure that we're supporting the best way we can.
Is there any data or research available, or maybe collected in Fox Green particularly, the cases of bullying. What is the main reasons why people bully and who were the victims of being bullied? Any main reasons, so parents being conscious of, making sure that children are not being bullied or they don't bully other people?
I think that in my experience, the main reason is often peer pressure. So kind of to impress other people that they want to impress, and they want to like them, so they kind of put someone else down to get in with friends. I think in this school, unfortunately, in the past, maybe some instances of bullying other people who are different, or who, are picking on people for some kind of aspect of their personality or who they are. Although I do think that what I notice in this school, they are very, on the whole, students are very accepting of each other, and they are very kind of inclusive. It's just sometimes you get a group of people who try to make something about people being different. I think those are probably I really think that the main reason why people bully in this school is to try and impress other people. Because I don't think there are people here who are, and maybe if they've had issues themselves and they kind of would rather be the bully than the bullied. Sometimes we've had that as well. Would you agree with that?
I would, and I think quite often when you look into it, it's a lack of confidence and self-esteem that's bullying. Very often puts themselves forward to try and impress everybody else around them, but actually it's a confidence thing for them as well, which is why we try to make sure, if we're aware of it, that support is put in for them as well, because if it's not, they're going to continue, and there'll be another person and another person, and that's just not acceptable. So we need to make sure that we're putting in support for everybody that has been affected by any kind of bullying. Yeah, I would agree.
Please do stay behind if you have any specific questions or anything you want to ask about. But thank you so much for coming. And if you wouldn't mind putting your pen and everything back inside your packet and giving it to me, I can return it to Mr. Aston so he doesn't kill me tomorrow.